After having 8 babies, I feel like I have a really good idea of what I actually need and like to have for that newborn period and what I don't. I remember printing off a huge list of baby items, probably from a registry site with my first. It was somewhat overwhelming and it was definitely expensive. The fact is, your newborn baby does not need much. Today, I'm taking you along as I get a few things prepped for my baby girl to arrive in a few weeks, and I'm also going to be sharing my baby must-haves, which isn't a very long list, but probably includes a few things you haven't thought of or possibly even knew existed. I'm definitely a minimalist in this area of my life. We don't have a nursery, just a master bedroom set up for babies. If you want all of the things or a big fancy nursery, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I will say, though, that skipping all of that has allowed me to just enjoy the pregnancy more and have more time to focus on what I think is more important, and that is the mental preparation for birth and the postpartum period, and I'll touch on that in a bit. Before I show you my minimalist baby essentials, I have to tell you guys what happened to me a few weeks ago now, and I debated on whether or not to share this, but finally decided it held an important lesson, so I will share. But first, I want to say thank you to today's video sponsor, Needed. I often get asked what prenatal vitamins I take and what I personally recommend since I've done this pregnancy thing a time or two. And I think that with just how oversaturated the supplement market has become, people have become very skeptical about what they actually need to be taking and which supplements truly provide benefits. And it's not without good cause. 95% of women are deficient in a key nutrient despite taking a prenatal vitamin. And this is due to the fact that most vitamins contain the bare minimum nutrients, the wrong dosages or ingredients, and excess fillers and sugars. This is why I now only take prenatal supplements from Needed. In addition to having dosages beyond the bare minimums designed to maximize nutrient absorption, zero tolerance for unnecessary fillers, and being third-party tested, it also comes in both capsules and powder. I personally love their prenatal multi-powder because I can just put it in my morning smoothie without having to taste it or swallow a pill because I am super sensitive to things like that when I'm pregnant. But if you would like to try any of Needed's products, I have a special discount code just for my viewers, so I will put that code and the link in the description below. And thanks again to Needed for sponsoring this video. Okay, as I pack my hospital bag, I will tell you about the crazy baby scare we had a few weeks ago that I feel like has been an important lesson learned. I woke up one night with severe stomach pain. The weird part was that it was very concentrated in one spot and it didn't involve any other GI issues. None. It lasted a few hours and then it went away. A few days later, I woke up around 5 a.m. with the same pain, but it was much worse. I have a pretty high pain tolerance and I couldn't function. I couldn't hardly talk to my kids. This time I thought, okay, this is really weird. I wonder if I should get seen. I called my sister, who's a doctor, and she suggested that I go make sure that it wasn't a placental abruption, which is where the placenta pulls away from the uterine wall. It's generally very painful when that happens and is also an emergency because both baby and mom are in danger. So I go in not thinking it's that, but not wanting to ignore it. They do an ultrasound, and a little while later, in comes an OB doctor I've never met before, telling me that I have a placental abruption. She puts in orders for an IV, we start discussing the game plan, and I'm trying to avoid having a complete anxiety attack. Meanwhile, the baby's heart was going a little fast, and this is before they told me the news, so they're really concerned at this point. Oh, and I was having contractions. So I'm left distressed for a little bit, and then a little while later, the OB doctor comes back in and pulls up the screen to show me the radiology report. And she shows us on the picture where the placenta is pulling away from the uterus and where the blood is pooling. Then she switches over to the little video and kind of stops and says, I might have a colleague of mine look over this because this doesn't really look like an abruption to me here. Long story short, friends, I thankfully do not have a placental abruption, and it was simply a misleading ultrasound photo that made it look like I did. They did keep me overnight for monitoring, and the next day did another ultrasound where there was no evidence of what they had seen the day before. As for the stomach pain, it went away and never came back. The takeaway here is this. If you ever get results back from a medical test, remember that these tests are not always accurate. They might be, but it really isn't worth stressing about until all of the pieces of the puzzle align and you know for sure. I've had friends be told that their baby has heart issues or a possible defect at the 20-week ultrasound, only to go on to have a perfectly healthy baby with no issues. The testing we have available today is great for some things, but it isn't perfect and comes with the huge risk of stressing or taking action like an emergency C-section, all for nothing. In fact, even with the fetal monitoring that they do, where they listen to the heart rate on the monitor, the nurse was telling me that they started doing this to help prevent cerebral palsy, which happens when there isn't enough blood flow to the baby in utero. She said it has not changed the rate of cerebral palsy, but what it has done is increased the C-section rate by a lot, because now when there are heart variances that maybe are totally normal, we're jumping to the worst case scenario. Anyway, I'll hop off my soapbox now, but I just wanted to give you this little encouragement in case you happen into a similar situation. All is well right now with me and the baby, and we're just plugging away on our plan, which I mentioned in my last video, and I'll link that in case you missed it. Okay, let's now go through my baby must-haves, starting with a baby bed or bassinet that I can pull close to my bed. I do co-sleep with my babies, but I also love having a safe place to put them that's not in my bed. My babies usually start out the night in there, and then I pull them in after they wake up for the first time, which is why the bedside sleeper or bassinet is so nice, so that I don't even have to get up. I feel like this lets me get a better sleep, makes co-sleeping safer after I sleep a little bit on my own, and then it also gives them a chance to learn sleeping alone, which is the eventual goal. You'll also see a swing in the corner of my room here, but I would not consider that an essential. In fact, my last baby hardly used it. I just like having it personally as another place that I can set baby down that's safe, especially since I have so many other children, including a toddler who's going to want to hold the baby. In the other corner of our bedroom, I also have a mini crib, which I didn't even know existed with my first few babies, but it's very handy if you have a smaller area like we do in our bedroom and you don't have room for a full-size crib. So this is where my 1-year-old slept until recently. We moved him downstairs, and this is where baby will sleep after the bassinet. And sometimes I will put baby down in this crib, even in those first few weeks, just because it's a safe place for her to lie. My next essential might seem silly to others, but hear me out. I have had some sort of breathing alarm or monitor for every single baby, and it has made those newborn days so much more enjoyable for me and has allowed me to sleep so much better. With my first 6 kids, I used a pad under their mattress that detects movement, and if it doesn't sense any movement for a set amount of time, the alarm goes off. They don't sell this exact one anymore, but I have found a few similar ones on Amazon. I only had it go off once with my second child, and when I woke up, he did appear to be in a state of sleep apnea, and it took some jostling of him until he took a big breath. I'll never know what would have happened without the monitor, but it convinced me that it was worth it, and I continued to use it with my other babies until with my 7th, the owlet came out. The downfall of the movement pad was that it didn't work while co-sleeping. They had to be in their own bed, and the owlet just goes on their little foot under a sock or in their PJs, and it monitors their oxygen level as well as their sleep patterns. This monitor is not going to necessarily save your baby's life, I know that, but it gives me peace of mind and allows me to sleep without having to constantly be checking to see if they're breathing, which we all do as moms. Also, let's say that a blanket ended up on their face in my bed. I would get notified as their oxygen level dropped and hopefully be able to prevent a very tragic situation. Obviously, I take other precautions as well, but this is just a no-brainer for me now, especially as a co-sleeping mom. Another perk of this monitor is that it comes in very handy when you have a sick baby. It's often a tough call as to whether their breathing is just noisy because they're stuffed up or if they're struggling. Coughs in babies can also sound terrible and be very nerve-wracking. I love being able to put this monitor on to check their oxygen and know that we don't need to rush into the doctors in the middle of the night or something like that. I've even used it on my toddlers just to check their O2 and give myself some peace of mind before we just try at-home remedies like a hot steamy shower or humidifier or something like that, so I know that I'm not ignoring something really serious. This drawer next to my bed holds the things that I want to be able to reach easily. While I do keep some bulb syringes in here, another favorite essential that you may have never seen before is an electric nasal aspirator, aka the snot getter. Babies get stuffed up really easily, and this thing is amazing at clearing them out quickly. It's also very inexpensive, and it's much easier to clean out than the traditional bulb syringe. Nipple balm would also generally be in this drawer, but I have it packed for the hospital right now, and I have tried so many different nipple balms, and I have now learned that, at least for me, lanolin is the only way to go. I have also learned that it's a better preventative than it is a cure, so I now use it after every time I nurse my baby during those first few weeks, and it makes a world of difference. I also have disposable nursing pads. I own reusable, but they do not work for me during those first few months, so disposable is a must. I do own a fancy electric breast pump, but I honestly don't use it and prefer this manual pump and this Haka, so don't think that a fancy breast pump is necessary unless you plan on pumping often, like if you're going back to work. It is nice, though, to have one of these cheaper options that, in my opinion, work even better for relieving engorgement in those early days. Don't wait and think that you don't know if you're going to pump or not. Get one of these options to have on hand because those first few days of engorgement can be terrible, and you will be glad that you have one of these on hand. In the bottom drawer here, I have 2 different styles of baby carriers that I love, and I will link all this stuff below. But baby wearing is something that has totally changed the game for me. I wasn't very good at doing it with my first few kids, but once I learned it and got the hang of it, because it's sort of a learned thing. At first it will feel really awkward, like you can't really get anything done with a baby on your front or your back. But once you get the hang of it, it really changes your life and allows you to keep getting things done and not just be sitting around. I can even nurse in my carriers, so I definitely consider my baby carriers an essential. I also have this bug net, which goes over a car seat, and I've honestly never used it before, but this is my first summer baby, so I'm excited to try it out. It's definitely not an essential, but I think it will come in very handy for these summer months with a newborn where we're still wanting to get outside, go to the beach, and possibly even do some camping. I obviously have a few things not shown here, like a car seat, and then under my bed I have a few bins of clothes. One is newborn, one is 0 to 3 months, and then there are a few things like shoes, socks, and hats, and then one of newborn diapers, which we use in the first week or 2. Under the bassinet, I have a few blankets. My favorites are the really stretchy swaddlers and these Velcro swaddlers that I use on my babies in the first few months when I put them in their own beds, and it really seems to help them sleep better. One kind of random thing that I have that has been a game changer are these soft waterproof mats. I lay them in my bed, and they're amazing for co-sleeping and nursing in bed because then I'm not having to change my sheets all the time. And these are heavy enough that they don't move around, so I feel safe having them under us. The last thing I have prepped is my cloth diaper stash. This is for both my toddler and the new baby, and I honestly kind of hoard cloth diapers. I'm definitely not really a minimalist in that area of my life, but this has been a great way to store them. And then below that, I have a wipe warmer, which I keep my cloth wipes in, and after baby's born, I'll put some water and a small squirt of soap in here to keep them warm and ready to go for all of those newborn diaper changes. And that's about it. One thing I have noticed over my many pregnancies is that while it can be fun to paint a nursery or buy a new cute outfit, simplifying the prepping process helps me enjoy the pregnancy more, but also focus more on the mental prep for labor and birth, which I feel is way more important. I recommend reading all of Ina May Gaskin's books on childbirth, natural childbirth books like The Bradley Method or hypnobirthing books, or even watching videos or listening to podcasts on birth. This mental preparation may seem silly for one day of your life, but I've seen how beneficial this has been in having a positive birth experience and how that positive experience has contributed greatly to how I feel during the postpartum period. I'm now working on sewing baby girl's baptism dress. We baptize our babies when they're a few months old, and I did have my first 2 girls wear the same gown, but then after that I decided it would be kind of nice if they each had their own that they could keep and pass down, and it's just kind of a fun sewing project to do leading up to the birth. I'll link the pattern below, I just found it online, and then my fabric is actually just from Walmart. I had made essentially the same gown for my last girl 6 years ago and loved it, so I'm basically just remaking the same dress. I am not a seamstress by any means, so please don't judge my abilities here, but this is just a simple enough project to be enjoyable. I'm super happy with how it turned out, and it just makes me that much more excited for this little one to make her arrival in a few weeks.